Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome to Cynic Critique, where we get real with cult films. I'm your host Thomas, and I'm here with my brother and co-host, my bro-host, Brian.
Hello.
And we're moving from Hell's Kitchen, but sticking with vengeance, as we discuss the Punisher movies from 89's The Punisher, 2004's The Punisher, and finally 2008's The Punisher Warzone.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that. So, I'll start us off then with The Punisher from 1989.
You see this board here? Every time he kills somebody, I put a red pin in it. So far, the only thing that I've got to show for it, these little calling cards here.
Made on a budget of $9 million is the number I found on IMDb. And sadly, it only grossed $533,411. I had to get that from worldwideboxoffice.com. It weren't on IMDb, Wikipedia, or Box Office Mojo. It also grossed $0 domestically. That was just its worldwide box office. It never got a release in the US, Sweden, and somewhere else. I can't remember. It did premiere in Germany, though, so I think that's why it's got a fan base there.
Yeah.
It's directed by Mark Goldblatt. It's written by Boaz Yakin, if I'm saying that name right. And it stars Dolph Lundgren as Frank Castle, the Punisher, Louis Gossett Jr. as Jake Berkowitz, Jerome Crabb as Gianna Franco, Kim Mayori as Lady Tanaka, Brian Marshall as Dino Moretti, and Barry Otto as Shake. The synopsis, as IMDb has it, is: when Frank Castle's family is murdered by criminals, he wages war on crime as a vigilante assassin known only as the Punisher.
And isn't it great?
I really enjoy it. Strangely, I had a note a little similar in my thoughts, but apparently Lundgren jokingly summed it up as The Terminator meets Batman.
Yeah.
And it is very similar to those. But I don't know if you know, the director of this, Mark Goldblatt, was the editor for Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Judgment Day.
And The Terminator.
Oh, he edited The Terminator as well, okay.
Yep.
He also edited 78's Piranha from James Cameron.
Yep.
Edited X-Men The Last Stand.
Yep.
The 2010 adaptation of Wolfman. And Chappie.
Yeah.
As an editor, he's got quite a lot under his belt, more so than a director, where, if I'm right, as a director he only had this, a film called Dead Heat the year prior to this.
Yeah.
And in 1992, one episode of a short-lived cult TV series known as Erie, Indiana. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's also a big inspiration for Netflix Stranger Things, because it's a similar premise. Or it was at the start of Stranger Things, I guess. Anyway, I'll let you share your thoughts first.
Lundgren's summary of this film kind of helps, but yeah, it's definitely like the 80s style action film you expect for the Punisher around this time. Feels a lot of people critique it on later Punisher stories by like Garth Ennis.
Yeah.
Solidifies.
That didn't come around like 10 years later.
Yeah, exactly. So this is based on like character the Punisher.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's based on a true storyline of the Punisher.
I couldn't find one, if so.
No, I think it does really well at adapting the Punisher. Some people complain that he don't have the skull on his chest, but I don't think he needs it for a movie adaptation. Like 89 Batman, that just put Batman in a full black suit. This just puts Punisher in regular street clothes as opposed to let's throw him in black tights, because that makes sense for this character.
I'm assuming there was versions of the Punisher not in black tights at this time. I don't know, actually. I don't think I've actually read any pre-90s Punisher.
No.
In a realistic world, and for what the Punisher does, it's ridiculous to think he needs a superhero tights outfit and the skull emblem. Like, it's nice to have the skull emblem, but in comics it's just there as like a marketing thing, so when another artist takes over, I guess it's recognisable of that character and so on.
Yeah, and it's that skull, I think, that Stan Lee suggested. No, it's just a name.
I think he had another name before Stan Lee said, how about the Punisher?
Yeah.
That's my Stan Lee impression, if you didn't know.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm glad you told me. I thought you were just putting on funny voices now.
And although he didn't have the skull in this, he did have it on his throwing knives that he was having. So he was leaving like a calling card with that, which was a pretty cool way of doing it.
Yeah.
And apparently this was done on purpose. I thought maybe it was a subtle coincidence, but when you watch the film, it's not. They've given him like fake beard paint. It doesn't look particularly great as a fake beard, but it's to subtly give him a skull highlight over his face. Like the white of his face that isn't in the beard makeup.
Yeah.
You actually get the like skull shape over his face in a couple of shots with how the lighting's done, which is really great from the cinematographer. I forgot his name. It's Baker.
Ian Baker.
Ian Baker.
Yeah.
And there's some really good shots in this in terms of cinematography, I think.
Yeah.
I have a problem with this, which I had on, I think, last week's episode was with Elektra, and I guess a little bit of the Trial of the Incredible Hulk in that the sets feel empty.
Yeah.
They don't feel particularly lived in.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean, but I feel like it kind of works strangely for this film.
It helps for choreography, I think, for the action sequences.
Yeah, it don't bother me too much. It just seems to add to a loneliness.
Yeah, I guess it. Also, could you say he's like an unreliable narrator in this? You know, it's how he sees things: bleak, dark,
Yeah.
shadowed, empty.
Yeah.
Kind of void, because that's not really what he's looking for anymore. He's literally about, do you break the law or not? And if so, I'll kill you.
Yeah, exactly. Dolph Lundgren's a great choice for Frank Castle as well.
Yeah, although, did you see who else was in the running?
I didn't know it if I did.
They offered it to Christopher Lambert,
Yeah.
who turned it down due to an ankle injury, if I'm right.
All right.
And there were also a rumour of it being Michael Pere from Streets of Fire.
Yeah.
And I think he'd have been great. It would have been a very different movie. And is he maybe a little too handsome and boyish for Frank Castle? Because I know some people have criticisms of Lundgren being quite, I guess, crisp and clean-jawed kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, not rugged enough, I guess. His face lacks the weathering of character. But what I find funny about Christopher Lambert apparently being offered the role is him and Thomas Jane have a strikingly uncanny resemblance
Yeah.
when you see them at similar ages.
Yeah.
So I think there'd have been some sort of strange through line of continuity when 2004 rolls around and Thomas Jane takes over the role.
Yeah.
You mentioned about, obviously, its budget being pretty stripped back for this and make it, I think. Or did I? I don't know. It did anyway. It had a pretty stripped back budget.
Yeah.
And so they shot in Australia.
Yeah.
Even though I believe it's actually set in New York.
I don't know where it's set. Do they actually say?
It's supposed to be Coney Island, the fight they have near the end, which is filmed at Sydney Harbour Luna Park's Funhouse.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that put in New York.
So it has to be New York.
Yeah.
So the police cars were an Australian Valiance, a 1976 VK and a 1977 CL models converted to left-hand drive to appear American. But what's weird about that is we see a map.
Yeah. I can't remember what the map is of, like, city or area.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for now.
But I don't believe that's New York.
No, it's Seattle.
Yeah. It's one of the places they were originally thinking of filming, I know that.
Yeah. So is that a continuity error or just, I guess, a goof in production?
Yeah.
And I did know the director wanted to shoot this in 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio widescreen.
Right.
So I guess it would have had a bit more of a cinematic approach with that, but the studio opposed it. I can only imagine it's maybe because the film for that's more expensive or the camera's required to do it.
Okay.
And that fight I mentioned, that's in, well, it's shot in Luna Park, but it was apparently going to be in a warehouse originally, and Goldblatt changed it because he was passing Luna Park driving to set and decided he wanted to make use of it.
Yeah.
And I find that quite an interesting addition with the Luna Park thing, because although it doesn't tie to Frank's origins in this, the Punisher, the Netflix version of the character played by John Bernthal, he actually has a reminiscent moment at a merry-go-round of his family. It's in Daredevil season 2 when we meet, not when we meet him, but it's within them first 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And I believe it comes back again in his own spin-off show that he managed to get.
Yeah.
There's a show down there with their adaptation of Jigsaw.
Yeah, that's where it ends in season 1, I think.
And I just wondered if that was a case of being influenced by this or just a little addition of, I guess, happy family moments to make his story more tragic.
Yeah.
I mentioned about the other choices that were maybe there for Punisher. Did you see who else could have been in this film?
No.
Nicole Kidman. Although it's not actually sure who she was going to be for. They don't know if it was going to be for Sam Leary or Julie Castle. And I find it so hard to believe that I got it for Julie Castle.
Yeah, I think it'd have been Leary. It was played by Nancy Everhard from last week's Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
Yes.
Same year as well.
Yeah. Well, it was actually through the director getting to see Deep Star 6 by Sean Cunningham, getting to see that before it was finished. Well, before it got its release anyway, and seeing a performance in that she got recommended for the role in this, which is nice. But Nicole Kidman and Dolph Lundgren do actually manage to go on to star in a comic book movie together, thanks to Aquaman.
Yeah.
I remember liking it at the time, but I feel I'm probably a bit indifferent to it now. And I've still not seen that sequel, so some DC fan I am.
Terrible.
Goldblatt also cast Kim Mayori as Lady Tanaka after seeing her in St. Elsewhere, which is a TV series I think that Denzel Washington was starring in at one point. And Barry Otto got his role as Shake due to his strong performance in Bliss from 1985.
Right.
And the character to Shake, I think, is perfect comedy relief in this.
Yeah.
He's so funny. There's a scene where it's revealed to the Punisher that he's an actor, but he says, I'm a thespian.
Yeah.
And the Punisher looks at him and goes like, what the hell's a thespian? And it just cracks me up. Although, other strange things in this, I find it so hard to believe that the Mafia families didn't know about Yakuza. Like, they didn't know what they were or anything. They're like, what's Yakuza?
Yeah, that was really weird.
Pretty sure if you lived in that world, you'd know what the Yakuza are.
Yeah.
Was it a way of spoon-feeding the audience? Would audiences not be familiar with Yakuza?
Apparently
because
not.
I find that hard to believe, because there's like films from the 50s and 60s about the Yakuza.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it Massacre Gun?
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Found that on Blu-ray last year.
Yeah.
Great little watch.
Yeah.
It's like Four Brothers, but with the Yakuza and old.
Old.
Yeah. 50s or 60s, that wasn't it?
Yeah.
Bit slow, but it really picks up for the end, and there's some great character work in it.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're not here about that anyway.
No, we're not.
Do you have any more to say about this?
I do. Similar to the 04 Punisher in a way, it had which we haven't spoke about yet, obviously, but it had an alternate opening scene that was apparently filmed.
Oh.
It goes into the Moretti bust. Frank Castle, Berkowitz, and Leary arresting Dinah Moretti. That would have been the opening of the film.
Okay.
And she mentions it later when she says they worked together previously, and he said when. She said something like that she was the hooker
Right.
undercover. And apparently there's pictures of that
From set
scene.
and stuff.
Yeah, because Frank Castle's in his uniform and things like that.
Oh, that'd be great to see. Dolph in uniform.
And then there's a cut backstory of that sort of stuff leading into it, of Frank pursuing Gianni Franco as well.
All right.
Which leads to the death of Frank's family and whatnot. And
Right, yeah. So they were going to
help.
link the Franco family to the Punisher's origins, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. It's also worth noting that the Punisher's origin is different in this to the comics.
Just slightly.
Well, it's a car bomb in this, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was meant for him, where in the comics, I believe they actually get killed through a gang shootout at a picnic.
Yeah. And the costume designer for this was Norma Miraco.
Okay.
She did the costumes for Mad Max 2 and 3.
Right, okay.
Which, when you look at the Punisher's look in this, it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
And that also links to something for the next Punisher movie as well.
Right, okay. Great stuff.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, good on her, because I've wrote in my notes while watching this, I actually wrote, there's a lot of cool jackets in this.
Yeah.
I lost count. Not that I was actually counting, but there was a lot.
Well, you should have.
Yeah, I wish I had now. I don't know what this note refers to. I've put, that big round door looks cool.
It's the door they come through in the end shootout thing,
right, okay.
and him and Franco working together to take on the Yakuza.
I've also put the opening music is awesome, but the opening credits are kind of poor.
Yeah, the music is pretty cool. It's Dennis Street.
Yeah.
He's credited in the music department on like Howard the Duck. I noted that because I thought it was
great
funny.
stuff.
The Shadow, 'cause I thought, what another comic book movie. And Alien 3 is in the music
Oh,
department.
right, okay.
And then apparently he did some music for one episode of The Flash from 1990.
All right.
So I thought it was a bit odd.
They maybe used some of his stuff.
From Punisher, maybe.
Yeah. For that crossover nobody knew was there.
Yeah.
I've also wrote, did Punisher just say Batman?
Yes, he does.
Right.
It was improv from Dolph Lundgren.
Of course it was.
It's
What a
during
great
the-
reference.
Yeah, it's during the torture scene.
And I've also kind of paraphrased and summed up a scene from towards the end. I've put, I love Franco's look of disgust in Punisher when he says he hasn't reached his limit of revenge. There's just something about that line of, I haven't reached the limits of my revenge. Quite compelling.
Yeah.
You brought up music. Did you see that the work print of this had a temp track where they used temp music from other places to give you an idea of what it should be sounding like?
Right.
A lot of the temp track was by James Horner,
Right.
who did Aliens, and also Jerry Goldsmith.
Right.
And I can't think what he's worked on now, and I know it's a big name.
Well, you should know.
I know I should know. That's what bugs me.
I believe Goldsmith did Alien.
Ah, right, okay, yeah.
So I'm guessing they thought the Punisher was like a xenomorph.
Yeah, or a group of xenomorphs.
Yeah. The sequel to this would have been The Punishers.
Yeah, with a dollar sign. I've also wrote, what are those high heels about?
Yeah.
That's a weird scene.
Yeah, that's from the interrogation torture scene
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, which apparently was slightly improvised. No, it weren't. I'm mixing it up with something later.
Right.
Ignore that.
Right.
But during that torture scene, Dolph Lundgren was apparently sweating so much that they had to keep wiping him down.
Yeah.
You also mentioned about Frank Castle's family getting murdered.
Yeah.
Well, I think we did actually when I summed up the movie.
Yeah.
Well, in this he's got 2 daughters, whereas in the comics I believe he has a boy and a daughter.
Yeah.
But his daughters are seen wearing Spider-Man pyjamas in the flashback.
Yeah, they are.
That's apparently to pay homage to Punisher's first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 129, which is the comic book, if I'm right, that the main guy wanted in Coyote Ugly, and she thinks he's buying drugs. Sorry, I really like that film, and it's a good.
I know, I thought that was going to be a huge part of the plot of that film, so when I watched it, I was really disappointed.
What about buying drugs?
About buying that comic book,
right.
pretty much, so yeah.
I don't know why they're trying to make a deal out of this, but I've seen it said that Stan Lee doesn't have a cameo in this.
Yeah.
No, he didn't create the character.
No, exactly.
Although the MCU's gone on to pretty much cameo him in nearly every film up until his passing.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous because he didn't create all those characters.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't truly create some of the characters that he's credited for. So,
No.
look it up. But Marvel did support the production of this because apparently Marvel was owned by New Line Pictures at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if they mean the whole company Marvel owned by New Line Pictures or the movie rights of Marvel.
Not a clue.
I couldn't find clarity on that.
I did see that Stan Lee thought this film was too violent.
Yeah, it's like he'd forgot what The Punisher was about.
Yeah, and Goldblatt stated to him that the Punisher is a violent character.
Yeah.
Stan Lee did give it its blessing, though, which I thought he would.
Yeah. Apparently, I'd never really thought about this, but the Punisher doesn't reuse weapons in this.
No.
Once they're out of ammo, that's it. They're dropped and left.
Yeah, picks some up, throws them away. He's good at that in this one. I enjoy it.
But that relies a lot on Shirley hoping to find another weapon.
Yeah, but it's Dolph Lundgren, so I don't really believe he needs a weapon anyway.
Well, no, he was actually a martial arts combatant. Competitive martial artists for karate, I think.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive. It also meant that he did a lot of his own stunts in this.
Yeah, he did.
Apparently he revised his Punisher monologues so he could be more comfortable with them when delivering them because he was still relatively new at acting in this.
Yeah.
This is after Masters of the Universe, isn't it?
Yeah, that's 87.
So, where his performance really, in hindsight, isn't all that great, but as a kid I loved it. I mean, he suits that role.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, I was right. The torture scene, Dolph Lundgren does improv dialogue.
Yeah.
But apparently some of it's, most of it's apparently cut due to offensive ad-libs.
Yeah, I want to know what they were.
Yeah, just how offensive.
Yeah.
And Kim Mayuri improvised the moment where Lady Miyako touches Castle's torso, apparently to mirror her character's fascination with his physique.
Lady Tanaka, isn't it?
Yes. But the fight sequences in this, it's probably a good job Dolph was doing his own stunts because he's quite a tough guy naturally, because I know him and Stallone had some bouts of injury while doing Rocky IV. But the fighting sequences in this were chose to be full contact for realism.
Yeah.
And they were performed by, if I get this right, Kyokushinkai karate champions Kenji Yamaki and Hirofumi Kanayama.
Yeah, apparently it was also something to do with them not being able to perform them as stunts due to the rules of that, I don't know what they call it, the
schooling?
Yeah, or something. There's like rules to it apparently, and they're not allowed to, it has to be full contact, they can't do it like stunt performing.
Apparently Goldblatt chose to keep Louis Gossett Jr. and Dolph Lundgren apart until their jail scene to create some authenticity in their bonding.
Right.
I don't know if that truly works for me. I mean, maybe in terms of getting a performance out of them, but I just found it a bit of an odd choice.
Yeah.
In fact, I quite like Gossett Jr.'s character of Detective Berkowitz.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's like a pretty strong character in how he pursues the Punisher. He doesn't know straight away that the Punisher is Frank, if I'm right. Does he?
I thought he did.
Right.
I don't know why.
I seem to remember there being like a strange revelation moment of learning he's the Punisher.
Yeah, it might have been. I've seen it a few times that I just kind of got to the point where I just assume he knows what I know.
Yeah, I know. Same. And Lundgren did actually reprise his role as the Punisher in a French parody, Le Punisher, during its French theatrical release promotion. So I can only assume he was just doing promotion work for it, not actually in the film. Also, New York City thrash metal band Biohazard samples Castle's dialogue in their song Punishment.
Yeah, they do.
Here is punishment. Here
I was supposed to go listen to it, and I haven't.
I was as well, but
I was also a little put off when it says thrash metal.
Yeah.
If the lines can be read between, maybe you can tell me then what it all means. He'll make the big picture as all say.
Not really my genre.
No.
Interesting fact, this film opens, well, of course it opens, But at the beginning of the film, we get a newsreader, and they state that Castle has killed 125 people.
Yeah.
Nice round number, that. I quite like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great if he always tried to keep it on a nice round number, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Every night he's just like, well, that's another 10 done.
And then this is where it gets strange to me. It says he kills an additional 60 people, bringing the total to 185.
Yeah.
With Gianni Franco as his 185th victim.
Yeah.
Again, cool, great round number.
Yeah.
But then I find that the body count in this film is noted to be 91, excluding those who die in mass explosion.
Right.
So now we've got a minimum of 91 people dying in this film, not
Yeah.
60.
But how many are killed by Frank Castle?
Gotcha.
There's a bit of a gang shooting at the beginning.
Yes. I hadn't thought of that.
Clearly.
So he kills, again, a nice round number of 60 in this film.
Yeah, I think he...
I like that he kills in multiples of 5.
Yeah,
I'm very fond of that.
Yeah, I think he only does that last kill just because he thinks...
I wonder if it's multiples of 5 because he's counting them on hand, with his free hand, as he shoots.
Maybe.
But that's all I have to say about this. I personally like this film. I think for its time, like what we said about Trial of the Incredible Hulk last week, it's a great adaptation for its era.
Yeah.
And yes, it is more action film than it could be, I think.
But it's what you expect from that era.
Yeah. I don't understand the nudity in the sewers. That sounds weird on its own. You know, where he's like meditating almost.
Hey.
I think it's supposed to be like him praying.
Yeah.
I imagine he's reflecting on his, his thoughts.
Yeah.
Not so much praying, but like contemplating and so on about what he's going to do and what's happened.
Well, that's probably the problem with it being more of an action film than a character. Because then it's like, I don't really understand why he meditates in the sewers naked.
Yeah.
And if they focus more on the character, then you'd be like, I understand why he meditates in the sewers now.
Yeah. I don't think he'd have killed this many people, though.
Yeah. I want to know why he has to do it naked.
Well, I'm guessing it's because it's actually him and he's not in his clothes of the Punisher.
Maybe.
Like that human element.
Possibly. But we'll never know.
No. Until we get a sequel.
Yeah.
I'd love that. Dolph Lundgren reprises his role. Old Man Punisher, 2030.
Yeah, well, that's what they should announce for the Marvel upcoming Doomsday or whatever it's called.
What, Dolph Lundgren reprises his role of the
Dolph
Punisher?
Lundgren and everyone's like, who? Because no one knows who he is anymore.
In fact, I'd love the idea if it is like the multiverse thing where we can get alternate people in this Doomsday thing.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love it if they got every incarnation. Well, not every, sadly, because Ray Stevenson's passed.
Yeah.
But if they put all the Punishers in there, and they're kind of upset about each other, but once they all realise they're Frank Castle and they kill criminals, they team up and you get a little Punisher gang.
Yeah. Maybe
They don't even have to go for the supervillains. They can be just taking out all the lackeys you get. All the masked no people that the MCU like.
And that would definitely be called Punishers. But with a dollar sign.
Yes. In fact, it would be the Marvel's Punishers.
Yeah.
And they refer to themselves as Frank A, B, and C. So they know which one they're talking to.
Yeah, sure. Speaking of dollar signs, though, I did see, I don't know where this number comes from exactly. I think I haven't read it on Wikipedia, so who the hell knows. But apparently on home release, this got...
Oh, I saw, yeah.
Did you see the number?
I can't remember, but I saw it, yeah.
It was apparently 30 million on home release.
Yeah.
And I think that was rentals and whatnot, but I'm not sure.
Maybe. I'm not sure if rentals count as home release.
No.
I know when I really wanted to get this, I had to buy my DVD as a German copy.
Yeah.
So it would play on our region players. So I have a German copy of Lundgren's Punisher on DVD.
Yeah.
But they did eventually release it on Blu-ray, which I got. That's the one I think I got Dolph Lundgren to sign when I had the chance to meet him at a Comic-Con.
Yeah.
The Blu-ray cover's a bit weird in that they added Thomas Jane's skull.
Yeah.
Just very subtly to the side of his zip on his jacket.
Yeah.
Like it's a small... It might as well not be there.
Don't need to be there at all, but I think they had to make it a bit more recognisable.
Yeah.
But I think they'd have been better putting the skull in like the background or something. But what do I know? I'm not a designer.
I also remember having to record this Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie off of TV at the time. I think it had been on BBC One or something, or Channel 5.
Yeah.
Be a bit odd choice for BBC One, but I feel like that's what it was, because I don't remember it having breaks.
Channel 5.
Okay, but I remember recording it anyway, and then talking about it to a friend at school who was quite into his comics and geekier than I realised. And I was like, oh, I've got it. So I lent him the VHS recording that I'd done.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh my God, I didn't realise it was Dolph Lundgren. I didn't recognise him without his blonde hair until his name appeared at the end. Which I thought was funny because it weren't till he said that I hadn't even realised it was Dolph Lundgren who was He-Man.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd actually seen Rocky IV by then at that point.
Maybe not, no.
Before I entered my GCSE years,
Yeah.
it'd be about year 8 or 9.
Yeah. I think you're right, because I think you watched Rocky IV and you said to me it was Dolph Lundgren. It's the guy that was He-Man and the guy that was the Punisher.
Yeah.
I was like, cool.
And
Thomas
now
Jane.
and now he's the Russian.
Yeah, I still like the fact. I like the fact that the first two Punishers were blonde-haired people.
Yeah. As we speak about the first two Punishers, do you want to get into the second? Because this was another one of them films that was pretty integral, I guess, or seminal to our upbringing of films and comic book adaptations.
Yeah, so it'd be 2004's The Punisher.
Those who do evil to others will come to know me well.
What a great title.
Yep. I mean, a bit derivative.
Director and co-writer of the film was Jonathan Hensley, and the other co-writer was Michael France. This was on a budget of $34 million, and it grossed $54,700,105.
It should have done better.
It should have done better, but I thought it did well enough
Yeah.
anyway. And it stars, as we mentioned in the previous one, I guess, Thomas Jane as Frank Castle, the Punisher. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Dolph Lundgren.
It should have. This one with Dolph Lundgren had been great. I wish Dolph Lundgren had played the Russian in this, I really do.
I kind of do, to be honest. Bit of a nod to his Rocky history as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, anyway. John Travolta as Howard Saint, Rebecca Romaine as Joan, Ben Foster as, I'll just call him Dave.
Yeah.
Um,
It's for the best. We've not got very far. We're still too early to be cancelled.
yeah. John Pinette as Bumpo. I was shocked I've already died.
Oh,
Yeah.
explains why you don't see him
I
in
think
much.
it was like 10 years ago.
I really enjoy him in this.
Yeah, he's quite funny. Anyway, Eddie Jemison as Mickey Duker, Will Patton as Quentin Glass. He's great in this. James Campanello as Bobby/John Saint.
Yeah, twins.
Laura Harring as Livia Saint. Kevin Nash as the Russian. I just had to get that in there.
What about Harry Heck?
All right. Mark Colley as Harry Heck, and I might as well say Roy Scheider as Frank Castle Sr.
Oh, was
Wow.
he called Frank as well?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Which I thought was quite weird, actually, because if I'm right in the comic books, Frank Jr. is the name of his son. Like,
Yeah, but if
the
his dad's
Punisher's
dead.
son. No, I mean the Punisher's son.
Yeah,
is
I know.
Frank Jr. So in
Yeah.
this, in my mind, it was, for some reason, it just went like, this is Frank's son.
I guess it'd be Frank Sr., Frank Sr. Jr. and Frank Jr.
It must be. They've never really gone into it in the comic. Anyway, the synopsis for this is: an undercover FBI agent becomes a vigilante and sets out to unleash his wrath upon the corrupt businessman who'd slaughtered his entire family at a reunion. Now, can I just say that it's not just his entire family, it's also family friends. There's people in it credited as family friends.
Oh, God. Sick bastards. The
So-
friends as well?
Yeah. So I thought, so at the time I'm thinking, there's quite a lot of people here as well. So it's plausible being a whole family if it's a big family. And then it was like family friend. I was like, Christ, they took his family friends. So yeah.
Also, fun fact, most of those people aren't actors.
No, they're stunt people, aren't they?
Oh, I was hoping you thought they were really short.
They were just bystanders.
This film is incredible. I don't even know how I'd learnt of the coming of this film, because I just seemed to knew it existed and needed to get the DVD.
Adverts. I remember adverts
Right.
for the DVD and whatnot. But then again, I know they were on the Punisher game, oddly. That was a year later.
We had the film before the game.
I know, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, though. I'm just saying it was
That
weird
game's
that
great.
the game was a year later and had the trailers on for the film.
Yeah.
I really like this film as well.
It's a bloody good film, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Thomas Jane just puts in a hell of a performance as well.
It's the most I enjoy him. And it's not just
Frank Castle or Thomas Jane?
Thomas Jane. Frank Castle, I'm a big fan of in the comics, more than this film, sadly. But he gets a higher kill count by far. So.
Yeah. For me, I feel that this is kind of the opposite of the previous one, where that was a big action, heavy film. This, for me, really kind of puts you more in the mind of Frank Castle.
Yeah. It really makes him into a character.
I feel this is the most human Frank Castle we have on screen.
Yeah.
Some people might argue that it's the Netflix one, but for me, I feel this one feels more like a human. He feels more like a real person to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's also how he tackles the crime as well that makes him feel more believable.
Yes. The Netflix one, like, it's great. It is a great Punisher.
It humanizes him, but
And-
he's also just an unstoppable killing machine.
But it works for that world.
Yeah.
Whereas in this world, like, it seems quite void of other superheroes. So
Yeah.
it also allows it to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe this could have been the world that last week's Daredevil was.
Yeah,
And,
oddly.
and similar to last week's Daredevil, not shot in New York.
No.
It's shot in Tampa Bay, I think it is.
Yeah, but this never states it's in New York.
No, but
I'm just saying that this doesn't
Yeah.
try and make you believe that this
No.
other city is
No.
New York. This is actually set where it's filmed, I think.
I'm not sure if it is.
Or it might be set in a fictional city.
Because I don't think they actually say where they are.
Don't really need to either.
But this was the thing that really made me fall in love with the Punisher. I liked him in 90s animated series Spider-Man.
I'm going to say I loved him because of
when
that.
he showed up, but then obviously we got to watch the Dolph. I think we'd seen the Dolph Lundgren one before this.
No.
Just after then.
Yeah,
when
the Dolph Lundgren one.
to hype this up, I guess.
Yeah, it was put on TV.
Because that's what Channel 5 did.
Yeah, put films on a bit late.
Yeah, because this would have been the reason we wanted to watch the Dolph Lundgren one, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is what made me fall in love with the Punisher, and since I've read all the Frank Miller comics of the Punisher. Garth Ennis comics.
Yeah, you've gone to Daredevil.
Oh, my brain is frazzled.
Yeah, Garth Ennis is like the definitive writer on the Punisher, isn't
I was reading Frank Miller on the Ronin comic behind you.
Right.
Instead of looking at my Punisher comics behind you.
Okay.
But yeah, this is what really made me fall in love with the character of the Punisher. And obviously, again, like Daredevil, very inspired by the Crow,
Yeah.
I would say.
Oh, yeah. Can I just say that again, we get a
flaming
burning
emblem
symbol. And I love it. This one gets to wear a long trench coat, I guess, and kill criminals.
Yeah. I mean, this whole look came from, what's he called? Bradstreet.
Is it Tim Bradstreet?
Yes, Timothy Bradstreet. This is the design that I think if he didn't create it, he made it famous with his amazing comic covers.
Yeah.
The original teaser to this is very inspired by his comic covers.
Yes.
Very quick imagery, though, and just slight glimpses of the Punisher character as it pans over like weapons and stuff on a wall or table. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Apparently fans complained that the emblem was block white.
Yeah.
Which I thought was weird because it was in the comics, but I'm glad they did it because it meant we got that more gritty, washed out one, which seems to be more symbolic to him now.
Yeah, I feel this defined the Punisher again for fans in a way. Like, they might say the Ennis run is the Punisher, but when it comes to the skull, it's this skull everyone seems to have.
Yeah.
This is the one they used to promote things with. Marvel, I think, even took it on and used it on comic covers.
Yeah, it's even very similar to the skull that we have now for Bernthal's Punisher.
Yeah.
His is a little more faded to one side, I guess, but it's a very similar shape. I mean, you could say the skulls are always a similar shape, but there are always subtle differences and so on.
Yeah.
I also mentioned how this could be similar world to the Daredevil from last week, which we also said could be the Raimi Spider-Man, and I think same for this. This Punisher actually cameos in Spider-Man 2.
Allegedly.
Well, Thomas Jane couldn't do it, so they got his stunt double to stand in for it.
Yeah, that's what they say, but I'm really not sure. I'm still unsure about it.
I still think it's plausible when you think of what Sam Raimi's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I'm pretty confident about it.
Yeah, I did mention how the previous one was similar to this. This had a whole planned scene with him being in the military.
Oh, yeah.
The opening.
In Iraq, would it have been? The Gulf War, anyway.
It's the Gulf War, yeah. They released like an animated version.
Like a motion comic.
Yeah.
Of the storyboards, wasn't it? With the voices over.
Yeah, from DVD and whatnot after. So you can view that. I think it's on YouTube as well to view.
Right.
And that's a pretty cool bit, to be fair.
I mean, it had to be cut 'cause they halved the budget.
Yeah, if I'm right, I think there was a lot more filmed for this film as well.
They halved the budget, which led to a lot of script rewrites and cuts. And they also limited the shooting days to 52 days. They put this whole film together in 52 days.
Incredible.
And 2 of those go to what is like the stealing scene of the movie. It's the fight with the Russian.
Yeah.
Played by wrestler Kevin Nash.
Who had to have his hair cut.
And bleached.
Yeah, he had to get his hair cut, so WWE... I think it was WWE at the time anyway. He had to have a hair v hair match with Chris Jericho.
Oh, to explain the haircut?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because a guy can't just have his hair cut.
No. I thought it was funny. Did you see about Thomas Jane? Apparently there was an original cut of this film. I don't even think it's like an extended version now or anything like that.
Nearly 3 hours long?
No, it was like an original, like what would have been the theatrical cut.
Oh, apparently. And it was about 140 minutes?
I think it was like a similar length anyway, but apparently it
didn't have a score.
It had less score and involved the subplot with Castle's ex-partner in the FBI.
All right.
It focused on that partner of his, the person who like betrayed him and got Howard Saint his name and everything.
Oh, right, okay. Because I don't think that's on any of the bonus features to your extended cut that you've got of this film.
Don't think so.
Which does have the motion comic opening to it.
Yeah, it does.
And I'd love to have seen that.
Yeah.
There's actually a good YouTube podcast with Thomas Jane discussing this film.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. If I can find it, we'll link it in the description.
All right.
Because it's worthwhile. I think it's only been done in recent years, but it's him actually talking about the production of this film and why the sequel didn't plan out and so on.
All right. It's a shame that as well.
Yeah, just to go back to the skull image in this as well.
Yeah.
This is the only time I believe it's had a backstory.
Yeah.
Well, until recently, because they kind of give it one in the Netflix series.
Yeah.
And it may have had one now in the comics. I'm not 100%.
Probably.
I don't keep up with the modern comics.
No.
I kind of dropped off comics in about 2010-ish, really. I mean, I
Yeah.
still read them, but
Yeah.
they're mostly old ones or limited runs or
Yeah.
not so much DC and Marvel like they would have been.
Yeah.
I think they've done it in the Netflix show. They kind of do it through a X-ray of his head, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's his skull that it's supposed to be an X-ray of. I can't remember.
Yeah. It's a weird X-ray image.
And like I said, I don't know if they've actually done it in the comics. But this was the first time, anyway, I believe, where they'd actually give it a backstory, where it was a gift from his son,
Yeah.
which I find quite funny. Because the kid says he got him it as a present, and he goes like, "It's really scary and intense."
Yeah.
I just find that a funny way of describing the T-shirt.
Yeah.
I'm also a bit gutted that they had Roy Scheider play his dad,
Yeah.
and they didn't have him say anything like, "We're going to need a bigger gun," or "a bigger family," or "a bigger shield." You know, the quote from Jaws, "We're going to need a bigger boat."
Yeah.
I'm just a bit good we didn't get some sort of line from that. But Roy Scheider, if I'm right, got this part because he was neighbours with the director or something.
Yeah, they live next door to each other, which I thought was kind of funny.
And although they don't mention him having a boat, or he doesn't get to say we're going to need a bigger boat or anything like that, the scene where Saint's guys chase Mrs. Castle and his son down, they start running to the pier, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's because the son goes like, "What about Grandad's boat?"
Yeah.
So I think the boat things are a little reference to Jaws as well.
Speaking of that scene, this goes back to something I mentioned previous one as well. When his wife and son are killed, it's pretty much a shot for shot of Mad Max.
Yeah, it's very
When his wife and child are killed, Tom James Frank Castle's in the same outfit as Mad Max as well, and holding a sawn-off shotgun.
Yeah, like Mad Max.
It's basically the same shot and everything. You can apparently put them next to each other, and it's the
I mean,
same.
when you think about it, Mad Max is just a dystopian wasteland version of the Punisher anyway, isn't he?
Yeah, that's why I thought it was kind of funny that just a costume designer on Mad Max at 2 and 3 on the last film. So
And you mentioned about like all the family and friends there that get shot down by Saint's guys.
you've got them listed.
No, I've got uncle, second cousin, second cousin's goldfish. No, I in my notes while watching it, I just put "so much family!" ! But that pier scene I find weird because Saint's guys have just like ran him over, and then when Castle gets there, all of a sudden their car like emerges, but like where was it hidden? It's so weird. I'm assuming there's more pier than we can actually see.
It shows you because they've reversed it round a corner.
Yeah, but
that's what's really weird as well. They actually reversed it round a corner. And I actually expected him to get there, and they just think, right, he's seen his family now. Let's
they're out of shots.
Yeah, let's drive around the corner, and
it's just kind of comical when you think about the logistics of it.
Yeah.
Other notes I had, it's before they get to the pier actually. His wife and son, when they've run away from the house when the shooting happens, there's like 6 cars, I think it is, like parked up, and they decide they're getting a car that has a boat hitched up to the back of it on one of the little trailers, which is a ridiculous getaway vehicle, but at the same time, I'm assuming that's supposed to be their car.
Yeah.
So they would have the keys to it, but it just kind of bothers me.
I saw a great thing, I think it was in Goose, maybe, and it was, if they'd have just stayed where they were, they'd have survived. Because they were hiding and no one really went anywhere near them, so they could have just survived.
That's filmmaking though, isn't it?
Who knows? They might not have. I don't know how long these thugs will get hang around anyway.
Also, when they do actually get Frank, he doesn't half take some shots to him.
Oh, no.
And it's a good job there's like a witch doctor guy there that finds him and helps him recover.
Yeah. No one really brings up that witch doctor guy.
I just did.
I know, but when people discuss this film, then no one really goes on about it. Do you remember when Frank Castle was helped by a witch doctor?
I'm sure he's a witch doctor.
No, they do say there's a witch doctor.
But it's like a really throwaway bit.
Yeah. It's like, look at the witch doctor over there.
And I can't find anything about if it's a reference to an actual comic character or anything either.
Yeah.
Like, is he the guy that goes on to become Man-Thing or something, you know? Like, what's his deal?
In my mind, it's a reference to the Skull Cowboy from The Crow.
Right, okay. Well, similar role, I guess. It's not long after that then that Frank Castle's pretty much back to health and he goes off into the city to get revenge on Howard Saint, and he buys his little apartment, and then you get that amazing scene where he's rigging his apartment. Yeah. He's like hiding guns, doing up his car. But I just love it because that's where you actually get to see one of the mines, and it's an M1A1 Claymore mine, which were mostly used by the US Armed Forces, and it actually says the little print on it, front towards enemy.
Yeah.
And I love that because anyone that's read the Ennis run of Punisher, I mean, that mine is so overused.
I'm going to say it's like a significant piece.
It's like his best friend. Don't go anywhere without it.
I think there's a comic cover with it on, and I think that
Yeah,
is
maybe.
named. I think there is a story named Front Towards Enemy.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they're all behind you.
So there. I don't see it, but I'm sure there was one. I got distracted by a Witchblade though.
But anyway, it's just a wonderful scene watching him rig his apartment, and obviously that then comes into play in the latter half of the film when the Russian shows up.
That scene really is just for when the other assassins come for him, because you get him rigging his car up as well.
Yeah, which comes into play for Harry Heck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's just off that. And at least the music fits with Frank rigging up his apartment.
As opposed to that scene with Electra.
Yeah.
The score for this is great.
Yeah, it's Carlo Ciliotto.
Okay.
He does a lot of Italian films, mainly. I couldn't really find anything that
Because
I've actually seen.
It's got a
by
real
him.
good Western vibe, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, this film, when you think about it, it's a little bit like your spaghetti westerns.
Yeah.
Like your Man with No Name sort of stuff. I mean, Man with No Name trilogy, as it's informally known as, because I don't think it's an official trilogy.
No.
That's kind of the basis for many characters like Punisher anyway, isn't it? And your revenge thrillers.
Yeah.
It's just that the Punisher turned the revenge thriller into a superhero, you could say. But it's not long after the scene where he rigs his apartment does he goes and gets Howard Saint's guy, is it Jimmy?
Mickey,
for that amazing ice lolly torture scene.
Yeah, which is taken from Chuck Dixon's
from
Punisher Warzone #1 from '92.
Yeah, I think I have it. Not that individual comic, but
Yeah.
I have the graphic novel with that story in.
Possibly. I'm not going to go looking on the shelves again.
I'm not sure if that's on there.
All right.
But that's a great scene, and if I'm right, that character's based on a comic character.
Jeez, I haven't got it noted for whatever reason.
Yeah, he's Mickey Dooker, isn't he, in the film?
Yeah.
And he's loosely based on Mickey Fondozzi,
Right.
who's a mob informant for Castle.
Right.
There's some really good little comic references in here.
Yeah.
Like you said, that popsicle interrogation's out there.
Yeah. The whole story itself is based on Welcome Back, Frank.
Yeah, and elements of Year One,
Yeah.
which when you see Castle's car's license plate, it is Year One.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you'd have to pay for a license plate to say Year One, but Frank clearly had the money to do so.
Yeah. I'm right. It was a happy coincidence that car had Year 1 on the license plate.
Wait, you mean they found it with it on?
It was sent with it on, apparently, or something.
Oh, that's so weird.
It was in the trivia somewhere, but I can't remember where,
Yeah.
and I can't bother to go looking for it, so I could be wrong.
But during that scene, once he gets him as his informant for Howard Saint's operations, he then goes and hits him where his money is, doesn't he? And gets them accountants, or whatever they are.
Yeah.
One of them's played by comedian Jim Meskimen. I think he's just credited as accountant number 2. And I just find it such a weird part for him to have, because I wouldn't say he's a big comedian and impressionist, but anybody my age would probably recognise him as one of Will Smith's teachers that he refers to as Sting from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's what I always think of him as.
Yeah.
And then it's not long after that, or just before that, I'm guessing it's after that, due to my notes being in the order that they would have happened. Frank also goes and makes himself known that he's alive to the press.
Yeah.
And he's like, why are the people that killed my family not arrested? He's like, there were so many lives taken or whatever. And he's like, you've just made yourself known, and I guess now when Saint's guys start going down, you're a prime suspect. That doesn't seem to have a storyline.
No.
I just find it an odd scene. Like, if I was planning on getting revenge, the press would not see me.
Yeah.
We also see Frank drinking Wild Turkey whiskey.
Yep.
Which also goes now to Marvel Netflix because it's what Jessica Jones drinks in that show.
Yeah.
Cool little parallel. There's also a scene where when he's putting his plan in order, because it involves Howard Saint's wife, and it involves her car getting parking tickets.
Yeah.
But the parking tickets have to come from a certain location, so it looks like she's off somewhere else. So he's taking her car, and to make sure the car isn't taken while he's driving it, he puts a fake fire hydrant in its place.
Yeah.
Apparently that idea came from something the director or the friend of the director was doing while living in New York to keep his parking spot.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really great idea, because I'm pretty sure it's not illegal. I guess you could maybe do them for littering, if you want to claim a replica fire hydrant as littering. But it's not like it's blowing in the wind or causing pollution in any way.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty cool trick about the fake fire hydrant.
Yeah. You mentioned the Frank sort of manipulating Saint to kill Glass and whatnot, the closest to him.
Yeah.
Did you see that was inspired by License to Kill?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
It's,
funny because it's not something I remember in License to Kill.
No.
I remember it in this.
It's a similar scenario in
Yeah.
there anyway.
I am gutted that everyone talks about the Russian in this, who's actually from the comics, as like an assassin kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no one actually talks about Harry Heck, the guy with the guitar case that comes and sings him a little song
Yeah.
when he's in the diner just having his dinner. Because Harry Heck is in the comics, and this is played by Mark Colley, who's a country singer.
Yeah. I think that's why they have him sing a song as well.
But
so
he's-
just had a bit of character.
Yeah, in the comics he works for Marnucci,
Yeah.
which I think is from the first run of the NS Max run.
It's from Welcome Back Frank.
Oh, so that's Marvel Knights.
I have it written down that Welcome Back Frank Marnucci's like
Yeah.
swapped for Howard Saint
Right,
in
okay.
this.
Yeah.
Sort of that.
Then it will be Welcome Back Frank.
And that's why it's a lot of the similar characters coming in. Like
Yeah.
Harry Heck, who in the comic book is actually Harry Heck Thornton.
Ah, right.
And apparently they dropped the Thornton part because they thought people might get confused with Billy Bob Thornton.
Ah, yes, that famous actor Harry Heck Thornton. I mean, it's not like his surname's needed in this film.
No.
He just shows up, sings Punisher a song and drives off, and then the Punisher seems to be chasing him down. Well, he chases the Punisher down, sorry, when he
Yeah,
leaves the diner.
Yeah.
Because his car's paintwork, I ain't got what his car is, but his paintwork reminds me of Mr. Bean's Mini.
Yeah.
It's that sort of lime green, yellowish sort of colour with a black bonnet.
Yeah.
But that's where Punisher's car, where he was doing all his little modifications, comes in.
Yeah.
With his little shutter over his windscreen and stuff. I think it's great.
I know you do.
But he manages to get Punisher's car to roll anyway. And when he goes over to Punisher, he's drawn his gun on him, and Punisher just pulls out a knife.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You've brought a knife to a gunfight." And it's very Indiana Jones because then he just like presses a button in his blade and shoots the knife into Harry Heck's neck.
Yeah.
But it very much reminded me of a little play on the Indiana Jones thing with the whip and not the whip, the sword guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. Do you think in a sequel he'd have got himself in a similar scenario, but he like realised he got like the wrong knife or something, so nothing happens?
Maybe. I mean, we've mentioned the Russian enough and the scene where he goes to get the Punisher in his apartment.
Yeah.
But it is such a good scene because that comes not long after that Harry Heck thing as well, if I'm right.
Probably quite a bit after, to be fair.
Well, I've not made any notes in between.
No. Well, maybe not much happens in between.
But it is such a delightful fight watching him. It's kind of slapstick and Looney Tunes in a way, but also quite real. I can't understand it, but the balance is so well drawn.
Yeah. Don't they call it the clown show or something like that?
Yes, that's what they referred to it as while filming. And they shot it in 2 days,
Yep.
which
2
is
days.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the behind the scenes of the stunt stuff of when they go down the stairs
Yeah.
where the fight ends onto the crash mats. But I want to say it was actually Thomas Jane doing a lot of them stunts.
It might have been. I think quite a few of them did.
I'm
that
not
one.
sure if he's the one that does the stunt fall down the
No.
stairs, but he accidentally stabbed Kevin Nash during this fight sequence,
Yeah.
which I find quite funny.
Yeah.
But it is such a good fight, and I love how it's juxtaposed against the... I forgot what they're called. They've got a little nickname, haven't they, them three in the apartment?
Yeah.
But I love how it's juxtaposed with them, like, having fun, cooking dinner, and
Yeah.
miming to opera and dancing and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the highlight of the movie. It's a good bit of comic relief, but there's also, like, a real good brutality in the fight. And there's a great scene where he throws the grenade and it gets battered back.
Yeah.
That's so good as well. Makes you wonder how big Frank's apartment is, because it seems massive all of a sudden during that fight. You assume it's quite small, but then all of a sudden it's really starting to open up.
Open up. Good one.
But then that goes into Joan stitching him up.
Yeah.
And Rebecca Romaine, who plays Joan, was she Rebecca Romaine Stamos at that time?
Yeah.
She accidentally really stitched Thomas Jane up,
Yeah.
which is a little bit funny. And then it's while that's happening, Saint's guys show up, is it? They like do a little assault on the house
Yeah,
and
yeah.
come for the Punisher, and they have
Yeah.
to hide him in the elevator.
Yeah.
And that's where Dave really steps up,
Yeah.
played by Ben Foster.
Ben Foster's great,
He's always great.
isn't he?
As Dave in this, he's such a hero because his face is full of piercings and they start ripping him out.
Yeah, yeah.
And he doesn't give up.
No,
He-
and again, second Punisher movie in a row, torture scene, and
Oh,
some of it's improvised.
Improvised. Yeah, Will Patton, because he's doing
Yeah,
the
yeah. Will
torture,
Patton.
isn't
And Will Patton's great as well.
Yeah.
This. Fantastic Will Patton in this,
he?
actually.
Dave is such a good bloke. You feel so sorry for him. And he's like really proud as well that he don't give up Punisher's location. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what? And the thing is, the Punisher isn't owed that favour or anything from him. He just did it in good faith, I guess, that the Punisher's a nice guy.
Yeah, which is right.
Yeah. And now we're pretty much at the end of my notes, because then I've got how good it is when at the end scene where he actually confronts Howard Saint and he's like, "You killed my son." And then there's like an explosion and he's like, "Both of them."
Yeah.
Because just prior to that, Howard Saint's other son's trapped with his arm exposed. So the Punisher gets out a mine and just like sits it on his hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, "They're not very heavy, but over time it's a good workout, and I forgot what he calls it, kind of thing, the type of workout where you just hold a weight for X amount of time. He's like, but see how long you can hold this.
Yeah.
And then when he's out there confronting Saint, he's like, you killed my son, and then you hear a ah and a boom. And he's like, both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe throughout the whole film, it's only at that point do him and Thomas Jane share a scene.
Yeah. Great, isn't it?
Yeah, but the fact they filmed in this location due to the fact that it's where Travolta was willing to go to fly,
Yeah.
could they not filmed it somewhere else for all Thomas Jane stuff where they originally wanted and just do Travolta's bits?
On the side.
Yeah.
Did they really have to do everything around Travolta?
I mean, it's still a great looking film and it all works out in the end, but I just find that a bit odd.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's before that scene now, because it's where, but during that siege on Saint's guys, there's a scene where he cuts a guy's throat.
Right.
The Punisher cuts a guy's
Yeah.
throat. But at the same time, there's a guy popping a bottle of champagne.
Oh, yeah.
So you get this beautiful, like, uncorking of a bottle
Yeah.
while this guy's throat gets cut, and it's kind of funny to see it. Because that's where the Punisher goes, like, full Rambo mode, I guess. And that scene's cut short as well.
Yeah. If I'm right, quite a bit of the violence in this is actually cut out.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous, because it's an 18 here already.
Yeah. I'd like to see all the...
Well, I'm assuming some of it is actually in your extended cut, but it couldn't play because,
It's American.
yeah, we've had it play.
Yeah.
I think this film is great for the budget and the time it was filmed,
Yeah.
the time it was taken to film, as well as the era.
Yeah, yeah.
Phenomenal. It's one of my favourite comic book films in general.
Yeah.
One of my favourite films.
Yeah.
I love the performances. I love the style. I love the pacing. Some people say it's too slow for Punisher, but I much prefer this pacing.
No, this is very reminiscent of, like we said, the Garth Ennis stuff, where, because Garth Ennis we've mentioned before, it goes through, I think we've mentioned it already, I don't know, but it goes through the story, it builds it up to what it's going to be, and then it's just an action ending. That's usually a Ennis Punisher story anyway.
Oh, the car he has is a Pontiac GTO, and they used 5 of them for this movie.
Yeah.
5 seems a lot for how little it's actually featured.
Yeah.
They maybe could have saved the money, but it kind of makes me think there's maybe one out there I can buy. And apparently a muscle car was chosen to differentiate it from the 89 Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, where he rode a motorcycle.
Yeah. There's a bit where Frank Castle is on the news, isn't it? And they're on about what he'd done previously, and Dave points out that he worked for the counter-terrorism unit.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Which is a made-up thing from 24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was weird.
I wonder why they chose to do that.
Why not? No, I don't know. Does seem a bit odd.
But that scene with the accountants, he causes an explosion. They actually did it on location at a Bank of America building in public.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people in the area called 911 about it.
Yeah.
It was quite pleasing to know that they actually shot a lot on location with this.
Yeah.
The Castle family house in Puerto Rico was filmed at restrooms and changing rooms in Honeymoon Island State Park, Florida.
Yeah.
The building was painted for the movie and apparently remains those chosen colours. And apparently they chose to do like in-camera effects over CGI due to budget limitations, but I think that is for the best anyway.
Yeah. It looks great.
Because if you think Daredevil's great, but I think it's some of the CGI now that's a letdown for it.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, I'd say look at the Netflix Daredevil,
Yeah.
and now look what they're doing in Born Again in the opening sequence.
Yeah.
And which would you prefer to have? And I'm pretty sure most people will say the Netflix. Also, I'd never really noticed until reading into trivia that Howard Saint's club's called the Saints and Sinners Club.
Yeah.
What a great name when you name Saint for the club. And the cinematography of this is Conrad W. Hall.
Yep.
I never looked him up, did you?
Yep.
What else has he done?
He did Panic Room.
Oh, great film.
Yeah.
If you're working with Fincher, you're onto something.
Yeah. And then the other one I've got noted is a great action movie, Olympus Has Fallen.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, I'm shocked. It's like polar opposites.
Is that the Channing Tatum one or the Jared Butler one?
Jared Butler?
Right.
Both pretty bad.
Yeah. Same film as well. That's what's funny.
They're like polar opposites to me. It's like Panic Room, cool little thriller thing. I could see how this and that were.
But the cinematographer, Hall, and director apparently looked at 60s and 70s action films like Dirty Harry, The Getaway, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly and The Godfather for inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think they managed to pull it off. And it's also really faithful to the... Is it Frank's Return? Or Welcome Home?
Welcome Back, Frank.
Welcome Back, Frank. It's very faithful to that story as well, which, for its breezy runtime and the cast and everything, I think that great job. I mean, we've already established they've swapped Marnucci out for Howard Saint.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's pretty accurate. Also, the development of this film began in 1997. That's when they decided they were doing another Punisher movie.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's when they decided to reboot the Punisher, because the Dolph Lundgren one was going to have a sequel, which got scrapped.
Yeah, that's what I find fascinating about all these Punishers. Sequel, not happening.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Warzone. I never really saw anything about a sequel for that.
I'm not sure now. Speaking of locations, I found it. The house used for Howard Saint's mansion belonged to ex-NBA player Matt Geiger at the time of filming. I just like the fact they filmed on location. I thought it was pretty cool it had an NBA link.
Yeah.
Because there's another sporting link here because I can't remember the name of the team. I think it's the Yankees. There's something about the Yankees mentioned about the score, and it's because Thomas Jane had been in a film prior to that about the Yankees or a player from the Yankees.
Right.
I can't remember, and I didn't make note of that because it weren't as interesting. But I guess it was more interesting than I thought because I wanted to bring it up.
Right. Seems like that kind of delved into other works by people. Like going about the writer Michael France. I'm assuming you saw what else he wrote.
Oh, I forgot.
I thought these were all quite different.
Oh, Fantastic Four.
Yeah, 2005 one.
Hulk?
Yeah.
Ang Lee's Hulk, though, right?
Yeah, 2003.
Yeah, and now I forgot.
Right.
I can't remember anymore.
You've gone in reverse order to what I'm going to do.
Sorry.
You've started with the comic book movies, so I'll work backwards as well. GoldenEye.
Yes, that was the other. Yes.
Which I thought, that's like my favourite Bond movie. And then Cliffhanger.
Yeah, with Sly Stallone.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then Jonathan Hensley, previous writing credits he's had, great as well if you didn't see. I feel like one of them was named a character in this in reference to one of the films he'd worked on.
I can't remember what it is, but I know I've seen it.
Because one of them is The Saint, the Val Kilmer one.
Ah, right, okay.
So I thought maybe he used the name Saint from working on that.
Maybe, but also Saint's a great name for a bad guy when...
You've got The Punisher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he apparently wrote the movie Next.
With Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
Not that Nicolas Cage wrote the movie, he stars in it.
Yeah. And the movie Armageddon, apparently the writer on that. But my personal favourite was Die Hard 3.
Maybe my favourite Die Hard.
It is your favourite Die Hard, you keep telling me. And costume designer on this, because we mentioned the skull and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
I thought they did a much better job on this than they have on other comic book movies they've worked on.
Oh.
One of which we mentioned last week.
Mentioned last week, not talked about.
Talked about last week.
So it was one of last week's films,
Yes.
Elektra?
Yeah, same costume designer.
That's a good costume though in Elektra.
I know, but it's just shocking.
Why? They did
Why,
Spider-Man.
No, they didn't.
Oh, that was the Daredevil one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That done
they
Spider-Man.
did the ones for X-Men 3.
Oh, right.
And they did work on Mortal Kombat Legacy, and I don't know if I mentioned that last time.
Is that the bad one?
What?
Which one's Legacy?
It's the web series,
That's great.
and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
For budget-wise, anyway. Not like you can do the Punisher's costume wrong anyway, is it?
What I'm really surprised about in this, especially as Thomas Jane went on to make the unofficial fan film of Punisher Dirty Laundry,
Yeah.
which I don't know if you want to talk about briefly or just maybe link it, because it is pretty enjoyable.
Can give a
So
quick
somebody,
discussion on it.
I'd seen somebody point out something about why it's not a great Punisher thing, and I can't help but agree with it, but at the same time it's so well made, and I guess it's at a time where he's trying to not be the Punisher anymore.
Right.
But there's a woman and child in imminent danger and threatened with violence quite early on in it,
Right.
and it takes Frank Castle a long time to retaliate, to do anything.
Right.
In fact, it takes Ron Perlman's character to say something about the gang
Yeah.
before Jane decides before the Punisher, decides he's going to involve himself in the altercation.
Yeah.
And after pointing that out, I can't help but agree that it does take him an awfully long time to get involved.
Yeah.
At the same time, just a bit of fun short film, and I still think it's kind of true to the character, and especially when I think it's supposed to be him reprising the Punisher from The Punisher.
Yeah.
And I get the idea that he's trying to move away from being the Punisher.
I don't know. Also, if I remember, isn't the dirty laundry, isn't his t-shirt in the washer?
Yes.
I always felt like he was waiting for that to finish so he could put his t-shirt on and go out there and help.
Maybe.
Because he's not the Punisher right now. He's just a guy.
Yeah, I thought the idea of the dirty laundry was the criminals.
And
Or
that
the
as
dirty
well, but
laundry.
he was washing his t-shirt, so...
I do love the fact that he beats them to death pretty much with a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
It's only about 20 minutes long, so it's really good, and I think Thomas Jane spent his own money on making it.
Yeah. Was it the whiskey he drinks in this?
I'm not sure. But yeah, I was just surprised that he went on to do that after clearly enjoying the Punisher role, which he could have been in the next film we'll discuss, but he didn't like the script or the approach they took, and we'll get into that when we talk about that film. But he turned down roles in X-Men as well, because he didn't see himself as a superhero actor.
Yeah, I think it was Cyclops.
That's what I would have suspected, because he declined this role initially twice before taking the part, and it weren't until somebody showed him the Timothy Bradstreet's artwork of the Punisher, where I guess it is a more grounded look, because it's just like a really gothic long leather jacket over a skull t-shirt and like combat trousers.
Yeah.
So I guess it was when he learnt there was a more human element to the Punisher, where he was like, oh, maybe I can be the Punisher.
Yeah.
I love him in the role. He's kind of my favourite.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had a bad Punisher.
No, there's no bad Punisher. Well, there's bad Punisher movie, but we'll get into that, I guess.
You also mentioned that not while we've been recording.
Right.
So I thought you might want to say it, but this is the third film in which Thomas Jane plays a character that does something.
This is what I thought you'd have thrown in as one of your unofficial trilogies. Because what was it last time that you mentioned?
The Sam Neill Going Crazy trilogy?
Yeah, you had the Sam Neill Going
Yeah.
Crazy trilogy. I think you've got another one somewhere.
Probably.
But this is the Thomas Jane tries to kill himself with a handgun trilogy.
Yes.
It's part of that, as he does it in The Mist and Dreamcatcher.
Yeah. I don't know why I made note of this, but Will Patton began his career off Broadway on productions, winning awards for stage performances.
Yeah. Speaking of Broadway, I guess that all linked to John Pinette, who played Bumpo.
Yes.
Mentioned he died. That's sad.
Yeah.
But on stage, he played Edna in Hairspray.
Oh, the John Travolta character?
Yeah, the same character.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the same character as John Travolta in
that's
Hairspray
awesome.
as well.
I wish I could have seen it.
So I thought that's cool. I've never seen Hairspray, but I thought cool. 2 Ednas in one movie.
Well, this is also the second time Will Patton plays an antagonistic homosexual character. His first time was in 1987 in No Way Out.
Incredible.
Do you think he's been typecast?
No.
No?
Nah. I really like him in Falling Skies.
Yeah, that's a good TV show.
Yeah.
Produced by Spielberg.
Yeah.
I say good TV show, there's like one bad season. And the season weren't bad, it was the story arc.
Yeah. They got a new showrunner.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Did they?
Yeah. New
Oh, that
showrunner
explains
on
it.
that season.
That happens with a lot of my favourite shows.
Yeah.
Rebecca Romaine, we've said that she plays Joan in this. She played Mystique in X-Men
Yeah, she
prior
did.
to this. Apparently often wears blue clothing in this to reference that character.
I don't know if that's the reason.
I'm just reading what trivia gave me.
Yeah, I know. Ben Foster was Angel in X-Men 3, so
Yes,
just thought I'd throw that in there.
Ben Foster was that dad in that Leave No Trace movie as well.
Yeah.
It starred her from, oh my god, I can't remember it, and it's great. From Edgar Wright. She goes back to the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
She was his daughter in it.
Was it? Oh, wow. I know which movie I'd rather watch again, though.
They're both great.
Leave No Trace. I really like Ben Foster. I miss him.
Yeah, I found it. Frank Castle mentions getting upset when the Yankees win the series. Thomas Jane portrayed Yankees player Mickey Mantle in 61, a film from 2001.
Right. I didn't see that Marvel were apparently surprised at DVD sales on this because it sold like
Did well.
sold about 2 million copies in 5 days.
Yeah,
It's a great film, though.
definitely. For those interested, I do have the guns that were used for some of these.
You have them?
I don't mean I literally own them.
Right.
I mean I have the information on them.
Right.
Castle's sidearms during the climactic firefight is a model 1911 style .45 pistol with numerous upgrades.
Yeah.
I think his dad says that when he's on about the guns at the beginning, because his
Yeah.
dad's like, "Oh, I've got all these guns I've made in my retirement. I think you
Yeah.
can have them." It's like, what a weird way to just give the Punisher a load of cool guns.
Yeah.
The weapon Castle uses in the final shootout is a Colt M4A1 carbine with modifications including a flat top upper receiver and a word I can't say, Picatinny accessory rail, if I'm saying it right.
What's it, man?
An M203 grenade launcher and an Aimpoint M68 close combat optic. And then near the end of the film, Castle performs stealth kills. I don't know if they count as stealth kills if you're using a bow and arrow, but he uses a PSE Spider S4 compound bow. And if you want to know the guns that Mickey and Bobby attempt to buy at the beginning of the film, they are Heckler & Koch G36C
Yeah, they are.
compact assault rifles. Did you know that already, or did you have it written down?
I didn't have it written down, but I remember. I read it and I thought, I think I used one of them on Vegas 2.
Right.
That's Rainbow Six, Vegas 2.
Did you mention about the Jimmy Weeks subplot in this, which Jimmy betrays Frank to the
Yeah.
Saints to
Yeah, I
settle a
did
gambling debt?
Yeah, I didn't
It's cut
say
from
what
the
it was,
theatrical
but yeah.
release, but it is featured in the director's cut, so I believe that should be on there.
I think this is just the extended cut.
When I say on there, I'm pointing towards
The extended cut.
I think the extended cut is the director's cut now.
I don't know.
And again, Stan Lee does not cameo in this movie.
And why should he?
The song Broken by Seether and Amy Lee plays during the end credits and parallels Castle's grief over losing his family.
Can I just say that
Yeah.
Seether is the only thing that really carries over into the next movie?
Really?
They have a song in the next movie as well.
Oh, good for them. I can't name a single Seether song off the top of my head, even though I just read Broken, so don't say that one.
Fallen.
All right. Okay.
I have it noted.
Is that from the next one?
Yeah.
Oh, and this was the last film produced by Artisan Entertainment before the company's closure.
Of course it was, because the last Punisher movie, like before that, studio closed as well, and then again the next one I think has a similar problem.
A little bit, I think. But I believe that Artisan Entertainment only made 2 Marvel films. They made this, and if I'm right, they make Man-Thing.
Incredible.
That was why I wondered if the Witch Doctor Man was anything to do with Man-Thing.
It'd be great if he was.
Even though I don't think the locations are even near.
No,
I can't
they're
remember
not.
where Man-Thing is set. But
I think they filmed in Australia for that, didn't they? Because that's why we've got a lot of Australian actors.
yes, you're right. And that links to the Marvel Netflix stuff.
Yeah, Rachel Taylor.
Do we throw it in? Do you think we should throw it in with next week's films?
It'd be a bit weird.
Yeah, but it's kind of more supernatural based.
Yeah,
Not to
it'd be a
spoil
bit
it.
weird.
Well, what would we pair it with?
Man Thing.
Yeah.
Screw Man Thing. No one cares.
I care a little bit. Oh, and I've never said, Thomas Jane does reprise his role not just in Dirty Laundry, but he's the video game voice as well, a year later.
Yeah, I did mention the video game earlier, but I can't
That
remember
video
why.
game holds up so well.
It's a great game.
We played
isn't
it recently when I got that new PS2 with the preloaded games.
Yeah,
And it's so good. The dual wielding of shotguns and everything is just phenomenal.
I love that game.
Same.
I remember playing it when I was younger, and I remember thinking I wish that Kingpin and Bullseye were more like the movie versions in this. But that game is just based on the comic books. Except Bullseye is weird.
Because it's Marnucci in that, isn't it?
Yeah. That goes through Welcome Back, Frank.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of loosely a sequel to this as well, if I'm right now. No,
Yes, it is, because they have...
don't they have Saint's son as Jigsaw?
Yeah, they have either John or Bobby Saint.
Yeah, but that's a great game. And I remember buying that from a shop in town at the time.
Yeah.
Because they would sell it to people not of the age, which was great. Go Storm Games. I don't think they're around anymore.
No.
But they would sell to underage. And I remember there was one game left, and it was me or a schoolmate at the time that really wanted it, and I managed to get it before he did. And I was very proud of that moment.
Yeah.
Oh, but in that game, Castle's a Vietnam War veteran again.
Yeah, it's more based on the comic book, and then it just kind of gets to right near the end.
I guess
it's just let's have Jigsaw be
a bit weird, wasn't it? Yeah. I guess that was maybe in homage to the movie.
Maybe.
And then one last bit of trivia, because it's kind of a nothing piece and pretty crappy, but I found it quite funny. John Travolta in this is the target for revenge of a widower. And in I Am Wrath in 2016, John Travolta plays the widower seeking revenge.
Incredible.
I hope he's called Howard Sinners in it.
I just realised his name's kind of House Saint. How saint is he?
I think there's a lot to love about this movie. Our dad's a fan of it, and he doesn't seem to like many good films.
No.
So maybe it's not as good as we think it is.
Our dad likes this one. Our mum likes Daredevil.
Does she like Daredevil?
Yeah, she likes Daredevil.
Okay, that's all. I can't say I've ever seen her watch it.
Yeah.
Is that it for this one, or do you have any closing thoughts about this film?
That's it for this one. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's wrap up.
So, Punisher Warzone, 2008.
God be with you, Frank.
Sometimes I'd like to get my hands on God.
Directed by Lexi Alexander, on a budget of $35 million and grossing $10,161,493, where just over $8 million of that was from the US and Canada alone. So it didn't do particularly well internationally.
Did great.
It's written by Nick Santora, Art Markham, and Matt Holloway. It stars Ray Stevenson as Frank Castle, Dominic West as Billy Rizzotti Jigsaw. They only credit him as Billy, but in the film he's called Billy Rizzotti, so Billy Rizzotti Jigsaw. Doug Hutchison as Looney Bin Jim, I guess also Rizzotti. Colin Salmon as Paul Budiansky. Wayne Knight as Mike Rowe. Dash Mihok as Martin Soap. Julie Benz as Angela. Stephanie Janasorskas as Grace. And the synopsis is Frank Castle, known as the Punisher, ruthlessly demolishes organised crime, but it starts an even bigger war. Any thoughts on this one then?
Disappoints me every time.
Yeah, same. And it's a bit like Elektra. A few weeks go by and I forget what it's like, what it actually is.
Yeah. Every time I come to watching this, I think maybe I'll like it this time, and I just never do.
I don't dislike it. I just find it somewhat forgettable.
Yeah.
Not the time watching it for this, but the last time we watched it, I remember quite having a bit of fun with it with Jigsaw and his brother.
Yeah.
But this time I didn't get anything from it because I remembered it as that kind of thing, but it didn't really do much for me this time.
No. I like Ray Stevenson as Punisher.
Yes.
Probably the best thing in this film, to be fair.
I mean, he really looks the part, because we mentioned the Timothy Bradstreet artwork.
Yeah.
He looks a lot like that,
Yeah.
but the costuming isn't that.
No, I see what they're trying to do, like tactical gear, like proper military sort of looking, but it kind of looks cheap all the time. This film in general.
And to say it had a budget similar to the Thomas Jane one, I find it inexcusable for why it's as it is.
It had $1 million more. This was shot in 40 days.
Mm-hmm. So 12 days less.
Yeah, and this was filmed in New York.
Well, I guess that's maybe where the budget went, because New York is supposed to be a cheap place to film.
Exactly. I realised as soon as I said that it was filmed in New York, I thought that's where a lot of their money's
And then
gone.
the locations they've got could be anywhere. There's nothing in this film about its look that I would be like, this is obviously New York.
Every time I've watched this, it was only when I read that it was filmed in New York. I genuinely thought it might be one of them where it's filmed in Canada or something.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it's just filmed in Canada. They try and make it look like whatever, like they're doing
Yeah.
else. And I imagine that's something that Lexi Alexander wanted as well. to
Maybe.
film
I mean,
actually on location in New York and get the proper city streets. But this, it has a similar problem with the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, like you said. Locations feel empty.
yeah.
It don't benefit from it either. Like the Lundgren one, you just kind of think 80s action movies were very like this anyway. They had
because
like
most of them sets are going to get torn down in the
yeah.
action sequences, but that's not really the case in here.
No, with this, it just every shot looks bad. The colours look kind of nice sometimes.
But this is directed by Lexi Alexander, who directed Green Street just a few years prior. But I think Green Street is a really good, I guess, British European movie.
Yeah.
It made a career for Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah.
And it stars Frodo Baggins.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of his name.
No, Frodo is actually a little hobbit man in it.
All right. But I think it's a great film, that.
Yeah.
Some good drama and action sequences.
Yeah.
I remember there's a scene in Green Street where a guy gets bottled in the neck.
Yeah.
And the blood spurts out the neck of the bottle in the guy's neck.
Yeah.
And I remember that being a really good piece of like action imagery and violence. And I don't think there's anything near to that in this.
No, this doesn't have the same visceral, real look to it that Green Street had.
I mean, she was definitely leaning into the comics sort of imagery.
Yeah.
But they're forgetting that in the comic, it's not real.
Yeah.
And that's just an artist interpretation. But she's really leaning into that artist interpretation with this. I quite like the use of colour in this in parts. It's really well done in that aspect. And the cinematography at times, I guess, for the well, I can't even say for the budget when you look at the Thomas Jane movie.
Yeah.
But with what they're trying to go for, there's some okay shots here.
Yeah.
But what's in frame, I don't think ever represents anything interesting.
No.
It's borderline comedy. I don't think she's taken the source material as serious as she maybe should have.
Yeah.
For the character. There's a scene where a guy just disappears in the air when he does a flip, when he gets hit by what looks like a grenade from a grenade launcher. I've seen people say it's a heat-seeking missile, but I'm pretty sure I see Punisher when it cuts to him with holding a grenade launcher.
He's holding a grenade launcher, but it fires a missile.
Right, so it's just a goof.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
It's not even funny because the explosion looks like one of them, like them cheap ones you get.
Yeah, but this is the first woman to direct a comic book movie.
Marvel movie as well.
Yeah.
Well, if you say comic book movie, then yeah, definitely Marvel. Yeah, I believe that's right for comic book movies, maybe.
I mean, a lot of places credit her as being the first one to direct a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it's the first woman to direct a comic book movie in general.
Alright, so for the first female directed comic book movie, I had to delve into this a bit, but there are quite a few numerous, probably unknown titles that are directed by women. Some are animes and stuff like that, so they don't really count because people don't include manga as the traditional comic book. So I'd say the first comic book movie directed by a woman would be Rachel Talalay's Tank Girl from 1995. That's what I'd say is the first one.
But then we've mentioned the writers, Nick Santora.
Yeah.
He does the Reacher TV series. He's the one that's adapting that for TV.
He created and developed quite a few decent TV shows.
I haven't watched it yet, but he did Fubar, the Arnold Schwarzenegger one on Netflix.
Yeah, he did Scorpion, which I quite enjoy.
Allegedly based on a true story.
Yeah. Breakout Kings, which I always want to watch.
All right, yeah. I can only assume a lot of the bad stuff in this is coming from Art Markham and Matt Holloway.
Yeah.
I mean, they're credited for Iron Man, which seems like a shining beacon in their 7-film writing credits.
Yeah, but if I'm right, Jon Favreau also co-wrote that, didn't he?
Yes.
I didn't look it up. I'm just going on memory.
I'm pretty certain he did. And there was a lot of improvisation in what the script was going to be on the day with that film.
Yeah.
After that, I think it is. There might be something in between, but nothing special, because these are the ones that stand out.
Yeah.
Transformers The Last Night, which was the final Bay-directed Transformers.
Yeah.
Men in Black International, which I still haven't watched and probably never will. Uncharted, which I have seen, and it's also forgettable and not great. Miscast as well. And Kraven the Hunter, which is somewhat enjoyable, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I find this film hard to talk about positively, I'll be honest.
Once you've gotten past cast.
Yeah.
Because the cast are amazing in this.
Because another problem is, I like action films, I like grindhouse films.
Yeah.
This film is essentially both of those.
Yeah. And it has a great cast.
Yeah, and at parts it looks like a great grindhouse film.
Yeah.
But it's not really achieving a good grindhouse film.
No.
It's just a bad one, I think.
I will say when you're looking at some of the imagery just as stills, it looks kind of cool.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I've I've looked through some of the images when I was searching for this.
Yeah.
I mean, I've wrote it has that fan film vibe all over it, which would make it a good film if it wasn't from an actual studio and a movie from an accomplished director.
Yeah.
Which sounds harsh, but that's honestly how I feel about this.
Yeah.
My first note on this while watching it was this music is a bit, and I can't think of the word, but I want to say obnoxious.
I can't even think what the music sounded like, but we've covered one of their films before.
Yeah?
Yeah, because the music was Michael Wandmacher.
Okay.
He did My Blue Valentine the year after this.
Okay.
But apparently he does the Armour of God, but for the English version.
Armour of God.
The Jackie Chan
Yeah.
movie. He does the English music
Odd.
for that. I think we watched the regular version.
Yeah. I have put it's a nice comic book style title card and opening credits.
Yeah.
So that's something. And you mentioned about the Punisher design seeming tactical, but I'm not really sold on it.
No, again, it feels like a fan film look. There's something not right about it.
I don't like the tactical collar that covers his neck.
No?
No, it hides his face at times in his mouth, and it kind of spoils the look. And I really, really do not like the skull. Not the design of the skull. The design of the skull's the very simple comic book skull.
Yeah.
Like the very simple, symmetrical one. And I could live with it, but it's how faint they've done it. It's not worn.
No.
You know, it's just very faint, and it might as well not be there. It doesn't do anything.
Apparently Alexi Alexander didn't want the skull.
It looks that way as well.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of shots where you can't really see it properly due to how faint it is on his chest. There's clearly some Batman elements here.
Yeah.
Because Jigsaw gets thrown into a vat of recycling glass and it gets set on him, which how it's done it's similar to the Joker from Batman 89 in the vat of acid, and then you even get a scene after with the mirror.
Yeah. Well, when you look at apparent influences for this, Batman 89 is there, and then two surprising films, I think.
Oh.
With Hulk, the 2003 movie.
Okay.
Which I think might be the comic book panels, but I really don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
I think they might have wanted to try that, but
yeah,
I don't know.
that kind of leans into that comic book aesthetic as well, but I don't think she's done it as well.
No. And then Sin City was the other one.
I find that one very hard to believe.
Yeah, that's got real style.
But also with Batman, it's the very opening, isn't it, where he crashes in on that table with like a load of gangsters around it.
Yeah.
Very much like Batman Year One when he gate crashes the crime family's meeting.
Yeah.
Apart from in here, he decides he's going to shoot them up and throw knives at them. And then you get that weird scene. It's really weird because I don't think you see how he gets on there. He like hangs upside down from the chandelier and spins and shoots.
Yeah.
And it looks like a tactical approach, but I completely disagree.
It's kind of stupid.
It's a bit weird.
It goes on too long.
I don't like the fact that this Punisher just seems to be a run and gun sort of guy and improvise. I like the fact he seems to be able to improvise, like towards the end. He pushes his gun through the door to blast in a grenade out of his grenade launcher attachment.
But that explosion's horrible.
Yes,
I wish we didn't see it. I'd rather it be from his side. You blow you see him, and then he just kind
or
of...
just from the outside of the room where the window blows out or something.
It's not very well done, that bit.
There's a lot of this in terms of the action. I don't think it's particularly very well done. I can watch and enjoy some trite action films.
Yeah.
And this is not one of them.
No. I think a perfect example of a pretty bad action film you can enjoy. I enjoyed it too the other year. With
Assassin's Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Assassin's Club. It was great.
That's elevated by having people like Sam Neill in it, though.
Well, yeah. But
although, yeah, that was a pretty low budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could just enjoy it just for being schlock, but this, I can't even enjoy it for that.
They've put parkour in this, which was kind of big at the time. But the parkour gang, that's not what they're called, they're just a gang of people doing parkour. They haven't particularly aged well in the fact that it's just not cool to look at, especially in this anyway, when you compare it with District 13.
Yeah.
In this, a lot of the parkour you see is at ground level, and they just do flips for no reason.
Yeah, they flip over barriers.
And I know most parkour kind of takes place at ground level because that's where they're going to start when you run anyway.
Yeah.
But for a film, you want it to look more impressive, and it just seems like they're doing parkour because it was a thing at the time.
Apparently they're doing it to mock parkour because a friend of Alexi Alexander, apparently they said something like they don't really like parkour in movies.
Oh.
And she just thought, I'll put it in as a bad joke and do that grenade kill, the missile kill, whatever that is.
Bad?
Yeah, terrible.
It doesn't feel like it's taking the mick out of parkour, though, in like a satirical way or anything.
No, it's just there.
It just feels like it's bad parkour and cinematography of the parkour.
Yeah.
There's also a scene where they're driving, and you know how they do the projection into the windows so it looks like they're moving? Ouch.
Oh, yeah.
That was bad. We've been rewatching Monk recently while it was on Netflix, and that was my complaint on there, but I was like, it is TV and it's not important to the film.
Yeah.
In this, for a movie, really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad.
Some people are probably thinking, why are you looking out the windows and not at the characters, but it was very distracting.
Yeah, it was distractingly bad.
I don't care if the characters were Looney Bin Jim and Jigsaw, but Christ.
There's also a scene where Jigsaw and Looney Bin Jim are doing the recruitments for the different gangs, and they go to the Irish and
Yeah.
the Yakuza and so on to like bring them all together to take on the Punisher type thing. And they're they're doing this really weird speech, and there's an American flag, I think, behind them.
Yeah.
And it was what I suspected. Lexi Alexander had seen these recruitment videos for the US military and thought how stupid they are, let's take the mick out of them.
Yeah.
That's obvious that it's satire at that moment in this film, with how it's shot.
Yeah.
The stuff they're saying, whereas the parkour scene, not obvious that she's taking the mick out of it at all. It just looks like a failed attempt at making parkour look cool.
Yeah.
And there's also a character in this that shows up, I think towards the end, in the last third anyway. Carlos. He comes to Punisher to look after Julie Benz's character and her daughter.
Yeah.
And Punisher's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Carlos, a friend of Micro. Doesn't really question it any further than that, and then just goes to willingly leave him to look after them.
Yeah.
Anyway, that Carlos is played by an actor called Carlos Gonzalez Vio.
Yeah.
I assume most people would assume he's called Carlos because the actor's called Carlos and it's a quick role. But I wonder if he's supposed to be Carlos Cruz, who's a character in the comics who was a friend of Microchip, and Micro wanted to make him a Punisher.
Yeah.
And he refuses until somehow his family die.
Yeah.
So he goes like, okay, I'll be the Punisher. So he's kind of like a substitute Punisher for a while in the... I think that's also the Chuck Dixon run.
Yeah.
From the 90s. I want to say 92.
Yeah.
But there's no confirmation about that anywhere that I can see. So I'm guessing this Carlos Cruz guy is a really niche character in the comics.
Yeah.
But that was just my take on it anyway.
There are a lot of comic book characters in this.
Oh, yes. Do you want to go through them?
No.
Okay.
I think you have them listed, don't you?
No.
No, I thought you did.
I thought it was something you were going to have.
I have a few listed, but I don't have like actors or anything that play them.
Oh, I don't have the actors, I don't think.
Oh, right.
Because one of them parkour guys is one of them.
Yeah, that's McGinty from Kitchen Irish.
Yes.
And then there's Christo Ballot from The Slavers. And then there's Pitsy and Ink, who are members of the Mafia in the Max title, but they work for Jigsaw in this.
Yeah.
Dash Me Hook's character is from Welcome Back, Frank.
Yes.
That's Martin Soap.
Yeah.
And Colin Salmon's character, Paul Budiansky, is from Widowmaker.
Right.
I think that's all the ones I've got listed. So if you know any others. So I might as well just say that there's a pub in this called Kitchen Irish.
Yes, which comes from the comic. I think that's the Ennis run as well.
Yeah, it is, because it's where McGinty's from.
Yeah.
I mentioned it a second ago.
There's also a place in this called Bradstreet.
Yeah.
The hotel.
Yeah, and,
and that's in reference to Timothy Bradstreet.
Yeah.
Mentioned that Ray Stevens is pretty good as the Punisher in this.
Yeah.
I think it's like 25 minutes into the film till we hear him speak.
Yeah, it is.
And he gets the highest kill count of all the Punishers, apparently, at 81.
Yeah, which I think shocking.
Although I guess Dolph outdoes him if you include his pre-movie kills that are on the news.
Yeah, but
then there'd be a lot in this, because if I'm right, there's like a whole file room at the police station that are all Punisher cases.
Yeah, there's.
So this one probably has the highest kill count that way as well. But again, this is a more action movie approach, so you want a higher kill count, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think I'd have preferred it if they'd have just gone like full Arnold Schwarzenegger Commando with it and just really gone into the crazy kills.
If this had have all been like is that in the Bradstreet Hotel, that shoot scene?
Oh, that was on about where he shows like the grenade launcher through the door.
Grenade he puts in like a can. Like,
Maybe, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah.
I think that's in there. And that's, if the whole film was on that level, I'd have been much happier with it.
That scene is maybe the best scene in the film, or for me it is anyway.
It was for me. I think I said it while watching it. It's the only action scene I really remember as well for being any good.
This film happened though really because it did start as a sequel to Thomas Jane Punisher, which I already said.
Yeah.
He was going to reprise the role because he did enjoy playing the role, but then he said it became too comic book in its direction and dropped out. And I don't think it's the fact it's too comic book in its direction. I think it's the fact that they don't translate the comic book to what it would be in real life to continue the vibe that his Punisher had. So I can understand him not wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Apparently there's also a more R-rated draft of this done by Kurt Sutter, the creator of Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
I would like to see what that version is, because I'm assuming that was when Thomas Jane was still on board.
Yeah.
And then obviously due to the studio closing down after his Punisher as well, made it a rights issue for a while.
Yeah.
So it definitely had a bit of a production issue.
Yeah.
In terms of it becoming a sequel to Jane Punisher. I don't like this.
No.
I love the Punisher. I like grindhouse films. I like cheap action films. I do not like this.
You like every other rendition in live action, like every other live action Punisher as well.
And again, it's nothing on the actors involved.
No.
It's on the look and the writing of this film.
Yeah.
I mean, I could even tolerate the look of this film if the writing was better.
Yeah.
There's some hammy performances from Jigsaw. Well, Dominic West, who's Jigsaw.
Yeah.
He likes knees.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't take him seriously now due to a Brassic.
Yeah.
plays a doctor in that.
And it's not so much his performance in this, but how they've obviously wanted his performance to be in this, if that makes sense, because he's a great actor.
Yeah.
I forgot to say, but Looney Bin Jim is, this isn't his first comic book role either, because he's from Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
He's one of the main guys. I forgot what they call the gang, but he's the main skull guy.
Yeah, one of the goals.
That Bane throws about when Ivy takes over that little area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that. I'm also not a big fan of this film's climax.
No?
No, because the climax is that Jigsaw does actually get the Julie Benz character and a daughter at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And then they manage to get Micro at gunpoint. It's two different people holding the guns on him.
Yeah.
And the idea is that Punisher can only save one of them.
Yeah.
He's obviously going to shoot Micro.
Yeah.
It was just an obvious choice.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care if Micro's his friend. That's the choice Punisher's going to have, because Micro's not an exactly decent guy straight up.
No.
He's too much like the Punisher, and the Punisher himself knows he's not a good guy. But apparently Lexi Alexander is uncredited for writing that scene.
Yeah.
That was her idea. It kind of works, but it's just so obvious that it's not really a decent climax. If it was in the middle of the movie,
Yeah.
where he had to make that choice, and then obviously you know that the choice at the end is going to be harder,
Yeah.
sure. But no, I don't like it. This is the first film as well to feature the Marvel Knights logo.
Yeah.
Which comes back, I guess, next week.
Hell yes.
And then that's the end of them.
Yeah.
And then obviously Ray Stevenson goes into the MCU after this as well,
Yeah,
because he plays...
Volstagg in the
yes.
Warriors. Is one of the Warriors
Yeah.
3 in the Thor movies.
and he's great in that as well.
Yeah. Apparently he was considered for Emil Blonsky, Abomination in the Incredible Hulk.
I think that would have been a better choice, to be honest. And I
Yeah.
like...
Tim Roth.
Yeah.
Well, they went with Tim Roth. But
mostly because he's a bigger guy, so you already
Yeah.
feel that difference in threat.
Yeah, and apparently Kevin Feige suggested him to Lexi Alexander for the Punisher.
Right, okay.
And she just watched like an episode of Rome, and so
Oh, because he was in that.
yeah, and she said, "Yeah, he's the guy."
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's like in Rome. In my head, he just looks like the Punisher now.
Yeah. I don't think we mentioned it, but Thomas Jane actually went on training with the military or something, and
Yeah,
guns training as well for the role of the Punisher.
yeah,
Stevenson also went under training with the US Marines to prepare
Yeah.
for his role, and he improvised many of the Punisher's one-liners based on his knowledge of the character's throwaway lines from the comics.
I can't remember any of his one-liners.
Exactly. And I'm not saying it's bad improv on his part,
No,
because I can't remember the Punisher really having many great one-liners in the comics.
no. Did you see the other people that could have played Jigsaw though?
Paddy Considine?
Yeah,
And there was another one, I can't remember who. I'm sure there was another one.
yeah, there is. Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yes.
apparently auditioned.
And
Apparently
the
he
studio
did.
said no.
Yeah, apparently he did a really good audition.
Yeah, I kind of would have wanted Paddy Considine.
Yeah, I really want to know what it'd have been like, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad he wasn't.
Yeah, but West had to spend 2 hours in makeup every day to do the Jigsaw prosthetics on his face.
Yeah, it looks quite good to be fair, the Jigsaw face, but it's just not a great film at all, really.
Doug Hutchison in this is seen eating kidneys at one point of an hospital orderly, which is reminiscent of his portrayal of a liver-eating mutant Eugene Victor Toombs in the X-Files TV series.
Yeah.
Wayne Knight was supposed to keep his eyes open when they shoot him in the head, but he found it difficult despite saying he'll agree to doing it during filming.
Yeah.
My favourite bit of trivia is Julie Benz and Ray Stevenson both appear in Dexter, the
Yeah.
TV series. They never appear together, though.
No.
Julie Benz appears in her second 2008 Lionsgate film featuring a character named Jigsaw,
Yeah.
the other being Saw 5, released during Halloween of that year,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty cool.
Saw 5, better
Uh,
than this.
Yeah, the fact that she's in 2 films in the same year with a character named Jigsaw,
Yeah.
that's the sort of trivia I eat up. I love that sort of stuff. There is also a podcast called How Did This Get Made?
Yeah.
On it, they had Patton Oswalt, who's quite a comic geek himself, to be honest. But Lexi Alexander actually guest stars on that episode to talk about this film.
Yeah.
Sadly, it's now behind a paywall because it's one of the... I forgot how many episodes they've got because I wanted to listen to it a while back, and then I've tried listening to it more recently, and I just don't want to go behind the paywall for it. It seems a bit ridiculous when it was once free.
Yeah.
There's also a part where Frank Castle talks to Micro about retiring, and he wears an Aviator Commando wool sweater, a prominent wardrobe choice in the Thunderbolts comic series and Punisher versus the Thunderbolts. And the last shot of this movie features a Jesus Saves neon light. This is actually a pretty good scene.
Yeah.
Which becomes just saves after Castle shoots a thug.
Yeah. That was apparently Alexander's pitch for the film.
What, just that bit?
That scene was like her idea.
Right. And the last thing I have to say about this is Ray Stevenson also does reprise his Punisher, just not in the way you expect. It's in 2009's The Superhero Squad from Marvel, which is a really kid-friendly TV show.
Yeah.
He drives some around in a van.
Yeah.
Sadly. Any last thoughts?
Not really. Just again, the cast is probably the best thing about this film. Like, there's nothing really else there. I can see why Lexi Alexander got the directing gig. I think a lot of the stuff she talks about, I can see what she's really trying to achieve, and I think it sounds great on paper, but I don't think she accomplished it.
No, I don't think so. And I don't know if it's budgetary limitations or maybe she's not as experienced as I think she is for doing a film like Green Street.
Yeah.
And it's a lack of experience that causes it to be as it is.
The cast really, really sell it.
Yeah.
Probably feels like it oversells it in a way.
Oh, one interesting note that I forgot to say when we're talking about cast. Julie Benz must actually be dark-haired. I only ever see her as blonde in everything I've seen her in, and then in this she's dark-haired, and it looks like it's actually her natural complexion and colouring. So I can only assume she's actually dark-haired. It's a nothing and something comment.
I remember you saying something while we were watching it.
Oh dear.
And I agreed with you as well that Dash Mihok is putting in a way too good of a performance in this film. He's a great actor, but he's bringing in like little character tics and all those kinds of things. Just
he's clearly like created a three-dimensional character in a film where it's not required.
Yeah, like in that scene where they're watching the Bradstreet Hotel, whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
And they're like across the road from it. And there's Colin Salmon and Ray Stevenson, and we said like they kind of feel like they know what film they're in. They just kind of stood there observing, but it's also kind of their characters as well, I guess. But there's Dash Mihok, there's Dash in the background, just kind of doing all these things just to make it look like he's actually a living, breathing, real person, and it just kind of looks what most people might say is over the top, but because the scene's just going on for quite a while, but to me, it just feels like a believable person in that scene.
He's a phenomenal actor that doesn't really get much credit. He's great in Thin Red Line.
Yeah.
There's another film we've seen him in where he's great. But if you really want to see a strong performance from him, then I would recommend the Ray Donovan TV series.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a strong performance on everyone involved.
Yeah. But when there's him in it as Bunchy, he really owns the screen.
And he's such a likeable guy. He's kind of like the black sheep of the family, isn't he? He's the one that's more vulnerable and not as, I guess, vengeance driven.
Yeah.
All the other members in that family kind of want vengeance. Oh, there's what's he called?
Eddie Marson.
Yeah, his character.
He's a great actor.
He's not quite out there for vengeance, is he? He's kind of like put everything in his past and just wants to make peace kind of thing.
Yeah.
In fact, that family dynamic in that show is really worth seeing.
Definitely.
It's one of the best crime dramas ever made, if you ask me.
Yeah. Don't get talked about.
And a unique idea.
Yeah.
Any more closing thoughts? Then, as soon as you just brought up a comment that I made. I'm good. I forgot about that with Dash Mihok. I haven't even written it.
I don't really want to bring many people up by name because I feel like we're bad-mouthing them at this point, you know. But because if I said the cinematographer's name, I can name a few things that they've worked on.
In terms of the lighting for this movie, I believe he's done what the director wanted.
Oh, yeah, I think
there's some good lighting.
Well, that was Steve Gaynor. Yeah, I think he did do a pretty good job at setting the scene and things like that. What you're looking at, but it just doesn't play out. But he worked on Super. He did Mayhem. A couple of what I consider underwhelming movies, to be fair. But he was.
I can't even think what Super is.
It's James Gunn.
Oh God, with
Rainn Wilson.
Yeah.
And,
that is a really enjoyable film.
But he was second unit cinematographer for one of your favourite films.
You're going to say something like Batman Forever.
And I said one of my favourite films for that. But it's one we have covered.
Can I have a bit of a less vague clue? Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Christ.
Didn't even have to give you a clue. There you go.
I just pulled it out of your head. I can see a picture of Frank. Castle and the Rabbit.
I was thinking of Frank Reynolds from Sunny in Philadelphia. Danny DeVito. Because we have been doing comic book movies, and I feel costume design is a big thing of that, and that was Odette Goddard.
Yeah.
They've worked on some great stuff. They did Snake Eyes, the Nicolas Cage movie.
Hell yes.
Oh, that is a beautiful film.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't say the costume is anything great.
No.
I mean, it's pretty bog standard crime thriller man in suits type stuff.
Oh, yeah, but I kind of remember him having a nice jacket in it.
I think he does, yeah.
So I thought that was worth mentioning. They worked on Lucky Number 11 and a few other, they are quite simple films. There weren't anything in there where I thought, oh, wow. I wouldn't say this film's truly bad.
No, there's some good moments in it.
Like I said, for me, it's just mainly disappointing, and it's disappointing every time. I go in there remembering I was disappointed, and I'm still disappointed.
And due to the film's actual direction, I find it very hard to enjoy Frank Castle in it.
Yeah, and Ray Stevenson is really, really good in it.
I see a lot of compliments on this but it's comic accurate and stuff. And it's like, but in the comic, he's got all that prehistory where we kind of know where he's at this moment in life. Or it's also a comic book where, not being live action, you're allowed to get away with certain things, but the tone just feels real off with this.
I just feel that if Ray Stevenson would have gotten a better film, he probably would have been...
He's got the look.
He probably could have had potential of being the best, because
Yeah.
I know he can act he really does a great
Well,
performance.
imagine if they'd have brought him back,
but
say, for the Netflix,
I'd have been fine with it, to be fair, because he is really good. He's great.
because he's a really good actor.
Yeah,
Sadly, he's passed away as well.
yeah, man.
I just remembered that.
I think there was someone in the Dolph Lundgren Punisher that passed away, but I can't remember who now.
Oh, one of the women.
Yeah, this is one where I just can't really recommend the film.
If you're a completionist, I'd say yes.
If you're a comic book fan, yes, because it
I'm
might
going to have
be
to say
for you.
yes, because
A
there's a
lot.
lot of Punisher fans online love this one.
Yeah, they don't like the Thomas Jane one. Some of them.
I
I'm
know.
quite surprised.
I am, with how that's the only one really based on a Punisher run and they do it accurately.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess you've got some actual comic book characters showing up in this, but for what purpose?
I don't know.
It's not like they're making a big deal about him being that comic counterpart or
No.
anything other than Jigsaw.
Yeah.
And I think they changed Jigsaw's surname in this.
No, it's in the Netflix ones. They
Right.
just simplify it in Russo, which I
Right.
think is a nice nod to the Russo brothers who
Maybe.
were helping define the MCU at that point.
Yeah, but maybe it's because I love film that I don't like this one, because it's not a well-made film.
I thought this was a low budget.
Yeah,
I thought lower budget than the Tom Jane one.
I would have thought maybe like 15 mil, 10 to 15 million I thought they were making this on.
Yeah.
To learn it's similar to, if not a little bit more than the Thomas Jane font,
Yeah.
I find ludicrous.
And then the 89 one from back then on 9 million.
Yeah.
I know there's inflation and whatnot to think about, but
Yeah.
it's kind of shocking. But I think it might be to do with filming in New York and shot in 40 days.
Yeah, because obviously not having the same sort of time for pickup shots at the end of the day.
Yeah, and having, I don't believe, film, like a big film in America as well, anything like that
Yeah.
at that point. I think there's a lot of things against it.
Any
Being a
idea
lot-
how much this made in its DVD sales?
No, I don't.
I'm guessing it weren't as impressive as what the other Punishers were then, because you had a quote, didn't you, for the
But-
Lundgren Punisher as well, didn't
Yeah,
you?
apparently it had 30 million
Yeah.
on, so I don't know what it had. I've never thought to look it up either.
It just occurred to me now that you haven't said,
Yeah,
and that you actually had it for the other two.
yeah.
But for the fact that you found it on the other two, I'm guessing that was pretty significant, whereas this, it clearly hasn't done well in that.
Yeah, I was going to say the other two, they were quite surprised due to, I guess, with Lundgren's, it was
Yeah.
like no one really knew of it even back then.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
guess if you've got a Netflix subscription, they can check this out right now.
yeah,
It was on Netflix, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we watched it through Netflix, this one.
What, not the DVD?
Yeah.
Just for convenience?
Yeah. I said, it's not a bad movie, it's just,
No.
for me, disappointing for a personal level. But I
Yeah.
know a lot of comic fans like it, I know some action films fans like it, but it's just not for me.
No, it doesn't even come close to a subpar movie for me, sadly. And I mean sadly because I love the Punisher as a character.
Yeah, and the cast, again.
I've got a substantial amount of Punisher graphic novels. It's nowhere near as much as my Batman collection.
No, but for a Marvel comic book, you've got a lot.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, other than that and Ultimate Spider-Man, I don't really own many Marvel comics.
no, Punisher's like your favourite Marvel character, and I guess last week we covered mine.
Yeah.
Mine's actually Cyclops of the X-Men, but...
But if you strip Punisher of his guns and the killing role, you've kind of got Batman.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
strip Daredevil of his powers, you've got Nightwing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's Catholic.
Nightwing.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
I think we said our closing
Okay.
thoughts, really. We both said that the 04 one's our favourite, right?
Yeah.
And this one's, we've made it obvious. And the Lundgren one, I still
I hate
think it's
trashing
great.
films, but I felt like it had to be covered.
The Lundgren one.
The Lundgren one had to be covered.
I love
Okay.
it. It's underrated. I think comic accurate for the time. Great action film for the time. Love
I
it.
really like the subtlety of that skull on his face near the beginning and again later when he's on his bike, I think.
There's certain lighting in that, and it really works well because it makes him look like the bringer of death.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which I thought was a cool visual.
yeah. Thomas Jane Punisher one, 2004. He's just superior.
Thomas
to both.
Jane, sadly, is definitive live action Punisher for me. I was hoping I'd like the Netflix interpretation more,
Yeah,
but I feel they waste a lot of time doing nothing with him
yeah,
other than trying to make him a sad little crying man.
yeah. And the Thomas Jane one,
And it's
I
not
feel
that-
it's all there
Yeah.
in
And
that 2 hours.
And it's not that he shouldn't be sad in the Netflix one, but it's the fact that he should be replacing that sadness with the anger and the vengeance.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? The sadness should be more swallowed down.
yeah. And that's what Thomas Jane does really well.
Yeah.
It feels like an internal struggle.
Yeah. I mean, that little monologue at the end, I think, kind of proves that.
Oh yeah, that's my favourite part of that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it because of that cutty fast visuals in the editing as he's on the bridge with his car?
Yeah, I like the fact they said that they didn't want a proper superhero bit of music for that film and for that scene
Yeah.
in general.
But I think Daredevil does a similar thing. He doesn't have a big superhero-y theme, I don't think.
It kind of is in comparison to
Yeah.
them.
Well, in comparison to that, yeah.
But I think they're two of the best scores as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
For me, they're two of my favourite comic book films.
Yeah.
I'd take them over any MCU entry. I don't care what MCU entry you drop in front of me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I remember when I last watched Iron Man, I thought, this doesn't hold up well.
No. Still good though.
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's because I was an adult when Iron Man came out that I find it less rewatchable and interesting.
Maybe.
You know, there's not that nostalgia level there, maybe?
Not as interesting a character, I think, either. Daredevil and Punisher, I think, are the most complex Marvel characters you get.
Especially what we've had in live action.
Yeah.
I think even the Netflix shows prove it.
Yeah, after that, you've kind of got Spider-Man. He's cool.
Yeah, again, Raimi.
Yeah,
The Raimi Spider-Man, I don't think will be beat.
No, that first movie's great.
Although I do love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And that is something I've said before his like cameo or guest appearance, whatever you want to call it, in
Yeah, I know.
Spider-Way Nostalgia Bait.
Said it since Amazing Spider-Man 2012.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of the show. Thank you for joining us this week on these ramblings. If you haven't already, click like and subscribe. A glowing review would also be appreciated. We are Cynic_critique on X and Instagram, and Cynic-critique on Blue Sky. Links to those and more can be found in the show's description. And if you haven't been punished enough, come back next week as we pay our penance and delve into more pre-MCU Marvel films as we talk Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I feel like my skull's on fire, but I'm good.